Hello hobby friends, I'm Jason and this is Level Up Hobbies. Now today on the video, in preparation of the return of Lionel Johnson, I will be kit bashing and converting a Shield Lieutenant from the Indomitus box set. Now this is a pretty easy conversion, and then on the next video I'm going to be painting this guy up. So let's jump in, let's start converting, and I'll see you at the end. Alright.
And here we have an Indomitus Lieutenant. I'm wanting to take and incorporate this into my Dark Angels army. With the upcoming release of the Lion, I really want to make this representative of the Dark Angels and not just the standard Lieutenant that came in the Indomitus box set that you can see in every other army. And as you can see here, this is how I modified the Indomitus Shield Captain. So he is a chapter master. I put him in the 3rd company. But this is something that I'm wanting to do, something similar to this. A couple simple changes here, the sword, the head, some decent decals on the model. So I wanted to do something very similar with this Lieutenant, because right now it doesn't scream Dark Angels to me. Alright, so here we've got a brand new sprue, so let's go ahead and get this clipped out and start working on it. And now that I got it all clipped out, I take and clean up all the mold lines and the little gate attachment areas all over the pieces, whether I'm going to use them or not, because at this point it's kind of up in the air. This is just kind of a process of trial and error, see what fits, see what looks good. So I'm not throwing anything out at this moment. So we go ahead and we get everything cleaned up and ready for kind of like a sub-assembly and just putting everything together for a dry fit. So to start, I assemble the torso and the legs, because I know I'm going to use these bits on the final product. So we go ahead and get those glued together and using some plastic cement. And right now, this is the fun part of converting a model, just seeing what happens next. I start dry fitting on the arms of the model just to see how the pose is going to look, and to see what bits I'm going to need to fill in any gaps or add to it and whatnot. Here I start grabbing some bits that I've collected. Here I've got some Deathwing Knights, the shield arms and the shield. So I'm definitely going to replace his little tower shield with one of these. It's very comparable. I think the Dark Angel shield is probably just a couple mils shorter than the Indomitus one, but it's what I'm really going for, and I really want this aesthetic, so I'm definitely going to be adding this to it. So I'm just going through here and figuring out which one I'm going to use. And so now I've got my shield chosen, and I'm just kind of doing like a dry fit just to kind of see where it's going to measure up. And this is where I kind of run into a dilemma. The arm that's holding the shield is from a Terminator, and it is way bulkier than the Lieutenant's actual arm. So it does not look right when measured up against the right arm with the pistol. So it's at this point that I decided that I'm going to have to cut that Deathwing Terminator arm off of the shield and just kind of get that all cleaned out of there. And also at this point, since I'm not going to be using the Terminator arm, I need to make a decision with this lieutenant's shoulder pauldron, because I'm wanting my lieutenant to be in the Deathwing, so I would like him to have the Crux Terminatus logo on his shoulder. And I don't have any decals for that, so I decide that I'm going to have to shave down his existing pauldron so that I can put a veteran pauldron on in its place. So I take my clippers and I just start cutting away the bulk of the plastic around here, and then I slowly just start kind of whittling away at it with an X-Acto blade, and just slowly just shave that plastic away little by little. So if you're going to shave away a sculpted pauldron like this, be very careful using your blade. Like you see here, it's a very sharp blade, which actually you're less likely to cut yourself with a brand new sharp blade, but just slowly, don't try to take a real deep cut, just shave right off the top. Ideally, I would like to have used just a blank arm, but I didn't have one that fit the angle and everything that I was going for. Or also I've used a Dremel, but I couldn't find my bits for that, so just use the X-Acto knife. So just carefully shave this away until you're done. Alright, so that shoulder's all the way shaved down, and it's looking pretty good. If you want to, you can take just like a small little bead of green stuff and smooth that up even more, and then press the shoulder pauldron onto that. That'll make a really nice, just natural fit for that shoulder pauldron. So once that's done, I just take and start measuring up the shield. It's going to take a lot of cutting, similar to that shoulder pauldron, to get it to where I need. So let's go ahead and let's start cutting on this thing. Now, just like with the pauldron, I'm going to use some clippers and cut off as close as I can to the part of the model, the shield, without getting too close that I damage the shield itself. So take your time with this and just work your way up to it. See, I got a little close there and that popped off, and there's a good chance that you can ruin or damage the part of the model that you're wanting to keep. So just be very careful with that. And then now I'm going to, again with my X-Acto blade, I'm going to start cutting away the arm and the hand on the back side of the shield. Now, once I got everything fitted correctly and cleaned out, I grabbed some plastic glue and I mount that arm to the shield, just holding it in the correct position until it sets a little bit, and then let that set up before I start messing with it anymore. And it's looking pretty good so far. I grabbed the body and I just kind of do like a dry fit of what the arm positioning is going to look like after I mount it. Now, once I'm happy with the positioning of that arm, I go ahead and I mount the sword to his hip, as it'd be very difficult to mount after I get that shield arm attached. And again, I check the positioning of the arm to make sure that it doesn't, that the sword doesn't interfere with its positioning, and everything looks good. It all lines up great. So at this point, I will go ahead and just use some plastic glue and attach this arm. Now I'll hold that arm there until it sets up a little bit. When working with plastic glue, make sure that you have a good contact for a few seconds, and as that chemical reaction melts that plastic, it'll set up. But if you mess with it too much in the meantime, it'll lose that connection and you won't have a very sturdy connection point. So just make sure that's set up before you start messing with it. And if you do, you'll have a nice solid plastic connection there. And now I move on to the right arm that's holding the Volkite pistol. I really like this arm. I like the positioning. And if it wasn't for this shoulder pauldron, like, I would have just used it. But I'm wanting to use a Dark Angels Mark III shoulder pauldron. It just ties more into this like knightly aspect that I'm wanting to go for, and also it's the Deathwing, so I really want to emphasize that Dark Angels symbol on there. I don't want to, however, I don't want to scrape and cut this other pauldron off, so I'm going to have to dig around and see if I can't find another arm that I can use for this. So I grab a sprue from an Intercessors box set, and I'm trying to focus on these singular right arms. I'm liking this one that's kind of pointing. It's got the same angle of just the arm, how the arm's held and everything. But I decide to go with the one above it, the one holding the pistol. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one here. So I grab that, the new arm, and I'm going to have to cut off this pistol. So I don't really care about saving this, so I just use my clippers, chop off the majority of it as close to the hand as I can get without damaging it. And then once I get those big chunks cut, I will refine it with an X-Acto blade and just shave it close. After shaving everything down, I ensure that I leave the trigger guard on here so that whenever I mount it, there's a pretty seamless transition between where the old gun was and the new gun is mounted. And now with the original arm, I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm going to chop the arm and hand off, and then shave the rest of the hand away from the pistol. Same way, I'm going to use my clippers to cut away the majority of the excess, and then I will gradually shave away little by little until I can get a seamless fit with the new arm. And remember, when you're working with X-Acto blades or any type of sharp instrument like this, work slowly and just little by little. I do a quick dry fit to make sure these pieces all line up correctly, which they do. And now I'm going to go ahead and just use some plastic glue to go ahead and bond these two bits together. Normally, I actually use a pin. I would put a pin through the hand and then up into the gun just to add a little bit more stability. But I was not even thinking here and just kind of breezed past that. As long as you're not really rough on your models, not pinning this would be fine because the plastic glue does give a pretty solid bond. But just in case, I would normally put a pin. Alright, once that gun is all set up, I do a quick test fit. Realize I need to cut off this nub here, so I cut off this mounting post from the original arm and just shave it down using my X-Acto knife. Again, be careful here. Once that's done, nice and smooth, I then do another test fit and mount this arm. There, when everything's lined up correctly, grab that plastic glue, slather some on there, and go ahead and stick these two pieces together. Make sure that the arm lines up correctly. You don't want it to be sitting too far forward or back. Make sure it lines up where it should be on the shoulders and everything, so he doesn't look like Quasimodo. And you're good to go. Let that set up, and your model is almost done. Alright, so now that both arms are attached, it's really starting to take shape here. It's looking really great. I'm loving how this new shield looks. Now I'm going to attach the tilting shield to his chest here, and I'm replacing the one that came in the Indomitus box with this kit with a tilting shield that came in the Dark Angels. I think it's the Primaris upgrade sprue. I could be wrong. It could be the normal Dark Angels upgrade sprue. But anyways, it's got the cool sword and everything to tie it together here. Now that we've got the most of the small details together, I'm going to add the shoulder pauldrons. So on the right, I'm going to be using a Forge World Mark III, just Dark Angels pauldron, and clip that out and get it cleaned up, and we'll get that glued on. Remember, if you're gluing resin to plastic or vice versa, you have to use super glue, not plastic glue. So clean this up and get it attached. Alright, so we're using some super glue on this and get it fastened on there. I actually forgot to film the left pauldron. For that one, I sourced one from the Sternguard Veterens box, and I found one that depicted the Crux Terminatus on there, so it worked perfectly. And now I'm dry fitting the helmet. This one is the Mark VI winged helmet from Forge World, and it really, I decided to go with these because it really ties into that more knightly theme that I'm going for. With Lionel Johnson returning, I imagine that he would kind of direct the chapter back to more of its lineage. So that's the thought, the scheme that I'm going with for my overall designs here. Now overall, I'm thinking the model, just the slight variations that I've made, it looks pretty good. It's a lot different than that standard Lieutenant. Just those minor details, those minor updates, they go a long way with like creating your own style, your own feel, like throughout your army. Okay, and now I'm going to start fitting on the power pack here, the backpack. I replaced the one that's standard on the Lieutenant because it had the iron halo. I'm replacing that one with the one from the Chaplain. And I am also adding a back banner from a Mark IV Horus Heresy kit. I love the banners and just the decorations and icons on the power packs. Eventually, I'd like to show you guys all of my veterans. They all have something like that adorning their power packs. So I'd like to bring this back to that and start using the banners for you know, HQ designation and stuff like that, and veterans and so on. Alright, I used some super glue to attach the banner pole to the power pack, and then I clip off the mounting post off of this Indomitus one. I can't stand those mounting posts. Clip that off, and then I dry fit the power pack on the model. I love how it looks here. It's really coming together. So I go ahead and grab my plastic glue, and I just glue that power pack to the finished model here. Okay, after everything has set up and you're not going to risk moving any of the bits, the model is pretty much complete. Well, next step would be we're going to work on the base. So, but yeah, I mean, I think this thing looks totally badass, you know, as it is. I didn't change much from the original, but it was enough that it looks like a different model. So if you compare it to the original Lieutenant, you know, same stance and everything, just switching out the shields, switching out the shoulder pauldrons, and then updating the helmet and then that banner pole, it makes it look like a totally different model. Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, like little variations like this can just make your army pop. Alright, so the model is totally together. Now we have to complete a base. And since he is a character unit, I like to just kind of spruce up the bases a little bit. So for this, I'm just going to use a piece of bark, and then I'm going to source some of these basing materials from GW here. I just clip this out, clean it up, and super glue it. Actually, for this, I just use plastic glue. Then I'll use super glue on the cork bark. I know that's all dry. I'm going to go back in and use some ultra thin super glue and just kind of drizzle it all over the cork. I do this because that cork will soak in that super glue. It's so porous, it'll soak it in, and once this dries, that cork will be like a rock. So you could still drill into it, you can still cut it and everything, but it'll stand up a little better than just having just a regular piece of cork on here. Be careful, don't get overzealous. I went a little bit too much on this, and super glue got everywhere, and that can be that can be a mess. So protect your surface at all times. And then once that super glue is dry, you can start attaching the model to the base. Do a quick positioning fit, find out where you want the model, where you want his feet to go. I like to kind of position the models more towards the back of the base so their arms or attachments or whatever don't hang so far out into the combat field. They kind of stay positioned over and around that base footprint. Once you've got that determined, go ahead and put a pin in the foot, the foot of the model here. So just use a pin vise, drill a hole, and I just use paper clips. I just clip off a length of that and then super glue that into the foot. Once you've got that in there, you can drill a hole through the base and attach the model, and you are you're done. And here we have a completed Dark Angel's Lieutenant conversion. I'm very happy with how this turned out. I can see this running, throughout my army. It fits in nicely with the Indomitus Shield Captain that I converted. And then it also fits in very nicely with the oncoming Lionel Johnson model that's coming out. So this was a very fun conversion to do, and I'm going to try to take aspects of this and tie it into units and models that I am adding to my Dark Angels army moving forward. I'd really like to bring them back to that knightly kind of lineage and really tie in all of that heraldry and stuff into their armor and into their markings and all of that. So thank you very much for joining me as I worked on this conversion. Hopefully you can take some of these items and turn them into your own, make your own Dark Angels lieutenant, captain, sergeant, whatever, because these are not limited to a particular model. So, all right, thanks for joining me. This is actually the first of a two-part video. The next one I'll be painting this guy up for my Deathwing, and I will see you guys next time. All right, later.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me today as I converted this Dark Angels Shield Lieutenant from the Indomitus box set to fit into my Dark Angels army. If you'd like to see how I paint this guy up, check out my next video, which will be coming out soon. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and subscribe down below, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you can be notified whenever I publish new videos. Thanks again, and remember guys, build, paint, and play tabletop games. Later.